Chapter 1. The Arrival. In the quiet countryside of Minnesota, tucked between forgotten pine trees and foggy lakes, sat a crooked two-story farmhouse known by the locals as the Still House. It was old, gray, and untouched by time, not out of reverence, but fear. In July of 2011, a small family moved in. Michael and Emily Parker, both in their late 30s, and their two children Jonah, 9, and Lily, 6. They were city folk, looking for a quiet place to disconnect, to start over after a difficult year. Michael had just recovered from a near-fatal car crash. Emily, a nurse, had taken time off work to care for him. The move was supposed to be a new beginning. The property was cheap, suspiciously cheap, but it came fully furnished, complete with antique furniture, a dusty attic, and a basement sealed shut by a heavy iron door. The real estate agent casually joked, "Don't go snooping down there. The house has a way of remembering what you touch." The first few days were quiet, peaceful even. The kids played hide and seek, and Emily started a journal. Michael, who had begun to limp again due to his injuries, spent most of his time near the fireplace, sketching. But things changed on the fourth night. Jonah woke up screaming. He said there was a man in the hallway, not a shadow, a man, pale and tall, who didn't blink. He said the man leaned in and whispered, "Thank you for letting me watch." Michael dismissed it as a nightmare. Emily, however, checked the locks. All the doors were still locked from the inside. The next morning, Jonah wouldn't speak. He sat silently, staring into the living room mirror, the one that came with the house. That day, Emily noticed something odd. The reflection in the mirror didn't match her movements exactly. It was delayed just slightly, a second late, maybe 2. She thought she was imagining it, until that night, at 3 a.m. Every mirror in the house shattered simultaneously. No wind, no quake, just an explosion of glass that woke the entire family. Except when Michael ran to check the rooms, Jonah's mirror, the one in the living room, was still intact. On it, written in what looked like condensation, were the words, "Stay, it's hungry." Emily wanted to leave immediately. Michael, still half convinced they were victims of a prank, told her to wait. "Give it one more night," he said. "I'll set up cameras. We'll catch whoever's doing this." But there was no one, no footsteps, no entry, just the quiet hum of an old house holding its breath, and something behind the mirror, breathing. Chapter 2. The footage. Michael set up 3 cameras before nightfall. One in the living room facing the mirror, one in Jonah's room, and one in the narrow upstairs hallway. He stayed up late, reviewing old footage from the house, but there was nothing unusual until 2:47 a.m. The hallway camera glitched for 3 seconds, just a flicker. But in those 3 seconds, the temperature in the house dropped by 12 degrees. The thermostat confirmed it. Then came the sound. Faint, a whisper, low and garbled, almost drowned out by static. "Feed it." Michael froze. He replayed the audio again and again. It wasn't just a whisper. It was layered as if multiple voices were speaking over each other, all saying the same phrase. The next morning, Lily came to breakfast with blood on her hands. Emily panicked, but the girl just smiled. "I was painting," she said. There was no paint in the house. No red markers. Her nails were clean. In the footage, at 3:06 a.m., Lily had stood up from her bed, walked to the mirror in the hallway, and pressed her hands against it. The glass seemed to bend inward, like a thick liquid. Then her eyes rolled back. Her mouth moved, but the audio went silent. Emily was ready to leave. Michael wasn't. He became obsessed with the mirror. He spent hours in front of it, sketching its frame, measuring its edges, recording its reflection. His drawings began to change, first abstract, then disturbing. One page showed their family, but all their eyes were scribbled out in black ink. Another page depicted a face not quite human, with a wide, toothless grin and hollow sockets. On the back he wrote, "The watcher doesn't live in the mirror." By the 6th day, none of them had slept. Not really. The mirrors had stopped showing reflections altogether. Instead, they showed a dark version of their house, where the furniture was covered in dust, the walls were cracked, and shadows moved without light. Emily found her journal torn to pieces. Only one page remained. It said, "Don't feed it. Don't name it. Don't watch it watching you." That night, the basement door, sealed since they moved in, was open. No one admitted to opening it, and the smell that drifted out wasn't of mold or decay. It was of warm breath. Chapter 3. The basement. The staircase to the basement was narrower than they expected, almost too small for an adult to descend comfortably. The walls were lined with what looked like black moss, but it wasn't damp, it was warm to the touch, almost pulsing. Emily refused to go down. She stood at the top, holding Lily's hand tightly while Michael descended with a flashlight, and the hallway camera mounted to his shoulder. Jonah, now eerily silent for 2 days straight, followed him without a word. The stairs creaked, not with age, but like something underneath was shifting. Halfway down, the light began to flicker, then dimmed entirely. For a moment, they were swallowed in darkness. No sound, no wind, just the quiet inhale of something massive, waiting. Then, the light came back. At the bottom of the stairs was a single, circular room. Stone walls, no doors, no windows, just a mirror. But this one was different. It wasn't framed, it wasn't mounted. It floated, roughly 6 feet tall and glowing faintly blue. The surface shimmered, like water disturbed by breath. Jonah walked straight toward it. Michael called his name, but the boy didn't stop. He placed both palms on the glass, and the mirror rippled. For a brief moment, a shape appeared on the other side. Not Jonah's reflection, but something behind him. Something tall, thin, covered in black hair, and eyes. Not just two, but dozens, all blinking out of sync. Michael lunged, pulling Jonah back just as the mirror pulsed violently and threw them both across the room. The camera feed cut out. Upstairs, Emily heard it, not the crash, but the laughter. Lily's mouth was open, but it wasn't her voice. It was deep, male, echoing from her tiny throat. One was brave, one was kind, one fed me, one is mine. Then she collapsed. When Michael and Jonah scrambled back upstairs, the basement door slammed shut behind them and vanished. It wasn't just closed, it was gone. A blank wall where it had been. Michael rushed Lily to the car, but it wouldn't start. Every time he turned the key, the radio played static until it didn't. Until it whispered. The mirror in the living room was bleeding. A thick black liquid seeped from its edges, spelling words down the wall. Chapter 4. The Deaths. The Parkers hadn't slept in over 72 hours. Their eyes were bloodshot, skin pale, movements erratic. Emily had packed bags. She no longer cared about proof or logic, only escape. But the roads were gone. Literally. Every GPS, every printed map, even the driveway, all led them in a circle. They would drive for hours and find themselves back in front of the house, no matter what direction they took. Michael checked the odometer, 0 miles added. That night, Michael disappeared first. Emily found his sketches scattered on the floor. Pages and pages of eyes, some open, some shut, some crying ink. A final page, pinned to the wall with a kitchen knife, simply read, "I see it now, and it sees through me." He was gone. Not a trace, no footprints. Jonah started sleepwalking. Every night at 3 a.m., he'd walk to the mirror and whisper something. Emily recorded him once. When she played it back, the audio was reversed. When she reversed the file, the voice said, "He's not yours anymore." Lily was next. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror and tore her own eyes out with her fingers. There was no blood, just ink, thick, black, sticky ink. She smiled as she collapsed. Her last words were, "He promised I wouldn't see it." Emily screamed, cried, begged. She smashed the mirrors, one by one, but each time she broke one, another appeared. On the wall, in the floor, in the back of her spoon. They were everywhere now, and they all showed the same thing. The house rotting, empty, and a woman trapped inside, screaming silently. Then Jonah vanished. Emily woke up to find every wall in the house covered in handprints, children's handprints, some smeared in ink, some in blood. The floorboards pulsed with movement beneath her feet, as if something huge was crawling just under the surface. And every single mirror now reflected the same message, repeated endlessly. Stay, watch, D. Emily, now alone, stood in the living room, holding the last mirror in the house. It didn't show her. It showed 4 graves. Then it cracked. Then the room went dark. Chapter 5. The repeating Emily awoke gasping on the couch, drenched in sweat. Sunlight poured through the windows. Birds chirped. The mirrors were gone. Everything looked normal. Jonah came down the stairs, rubbing his eyes. Lily laughed from the kitchen, her eyes perfectly intact. Michael stood at the counter pouring coffee. "Bad dream?" he asked. Emily didn't answer. She walked through the house in a daze, every room restored. Every broken mirror replaced with family photos. The basement door, sealed, just like the first day. She checked her phone. Day 1. The calendar had reset, but she remembered everything. She grabbed Jonah and Lily, rushed to the car. It started instantly. GPS worked. She drove 10 miles, then 20. Trees passed, roads stretched. But as they reached the state line, Lily looked up and asked, "Why are we going back, Mommy?" Emily slammed the brakes. Ahead of them, the house, exactly as they left it. The same front porch, the same broken swing, the same mirror, visible in the hallway window. She turned to Michael, who hadn't been in the car a second ago now, sitting beside her, eyes wide and empty. "We never left," he said. They rushed back to the city. She brought the police, the news, paranormal investigators. But every photo she took of the house came back blank. No address, no digital record, as if it didn't exist. Then she watched the footage. Every tape from the house hours of it had been overwritten, with a new video, just one clip. Emily, standing in front of a mirror, speaking directly to the camera, her eyes gone, her mouth stitched closed. Behind her, the house burned, but the mirror didn't. It was the only thing left, still floating, still whispering, still waiting. And at the very bottom of the video, a final caption flickered in red. Now it's your turn to watch. Chapter 6. The Mirror Network. After the failed attempts to escape and the terrifying loop back to the house, Emily sought refuge in an old motel 60 miles away. The receptionist, a kind old woman named Doris, gave her a strange look as she handed over the room key. "You look like you've seen the house," she muttered. Emily froze. "You know it?" Doris nodded slowly. "You don't find that place. It finds you." That night, Emily locked every mirror in the motel room in the closet. She covered the bathroom glass with a blanket. But at 3:0 a.m., the TV turned on by itself. No signal, just static. And then her reflection, not in the screen behind it, her own face, smiling, bleeding from the eyes, whispering, "You brought it with you." Emily ran. Again, she dumped her phone, smashed her laptop, destroyed every reflective surface she could find. But the reflections followed, not just in mirrors anymore, now, in car windows, puddles, sunglasses. Every time she blinked, she caught glimpses of herself, watching herself. She began to hear about others. Online forums, anonymous confessions, people around the world describing the same symptoms. Lost time, mirror distortions, black ink, the phrase, "keep watching." One user posted, "My son was talking to someone in the mirror. I thought it was imaginary, until I saw a hand touch his shoulder from the inside." Another wrote, "We broke all the mirrors. It didn't matter. It started showing up in our dreams." Emily tracked down a professor of folklore and occult phenomena, Dr. Benjamin Ward. He'd spent his career documenting mirror-based hauntings across cultures: Aztec, Celtic, Persian. They all describe the same thing: the watcher between worlds, a being that feeds on attention. The more people look, the stronger it gets. It doesn't possess people, it replaces them, one by one, until only watchers remain. Dr. Ward revealed a horrifying truth. It's not just in your house. Your house is just the start. Once you see it, once you feed it your fear, you become part of its reflection. His office burned to the ground that same night. Emily's story was growing. She tried warning others. She uploaded her footage anonymously, started a YouTube channel, a podcast, live streams, anything to expose it. But every time someone watched, someone else disappeared, and their mirror turned black. Chapter 7. The Reflections That Remember. Emily was no longer alone. The deeper she dug, the more names surfaced: people across the globe with identical stories, homes that didn't exist on maps, children whispering in languages they never learned, and always, the mirrors. She formed a private online group called The Reflected: Survivors, Witnesses, Victims. But the members started dropping off. One by one, their accounts went inactive. Not deactivated, just silent. No final posts, no warnings, just gone. Then the videos started. Emails from addresses Emily didn't recognize, each one containing a clip. At first, the same chilling scene: a person sitting in front of a mirror, pleading with the camera, begging not to be watched. Then, without fail, a figure appeared behind them, a shadow. Long, thin limbs, a body that twitched like frames out of sync, dozens of eyes blinking in impossible rhythms. The moment the figure touched the person, they froze, then smiled, then stared straight at the camera. Tag. Emily realized something horrifying. The curse was spreading through screens. The watcher no longer needed mirrors, it needed views. The more people watched the footage, the more powerful it became. She traced IP addresses from the emails. Most led to empty buildings, burnt houses, or coordinates in the middle of the ocean. One led her to a child's bedroom in Sweden. The room was untouched, except for one thing: a broken tablet on the bed, still displaying a paused video of a dark room and a whispering voice. The reflection in the tablet? Not the child. It was her, Emily. Standing in the Parker house, mouth stitched, eyes gone. It was live. She dropped the tablet and ran. But the worst came days later. She opened a live stream, hoping to warn people again. But the chat wasn't normal. It was filled with hundreds of usernames, many she recognized. All offline, all supposedly gone. They were typing the same thing: "You're already in." Emily turned her webcam off. Too late. Behind her, in her reflection on the black screen, something moved. Chapter 8. Static Souls. Emily stopped using electronics. No screens, no mirrors. She moved into an off-grid cabin, deep in the Montana wilderness. No Wi-Fi, no electricity, just candles and her journal. For the first time in months, she slept until the radio turned on. She hadn't brought a radio. It was an old, rusted transistor unit sitting on the cabin floor. She approached cautiously. The dials moved on their own, crackling through static until a clear voice came through. Her own, reading her journal out loud, word for word, page after page, then silence, then another voice. The signal is inside you now. She smashed the radio. But it didn't matter, because now she could hear them without devices. At night, voices echoed in her ears, calling her name in reverse. During the day, her reflection would linger in puddles, in polished wood, in the pupils of strangers. They watched her from everywhere. She began to hallucinate or thought she was. In one terrifying moment, she saw her own face on a passerby in the woods. Same scar, same eyes, same expression of knowing dread. It smiled and vanished. Emily went to a priest, then a shaman, then a neuroscientist. They all said the same thing in different ways. You're no longer haunted, you're the host. The Watcher was using her to see, to learn, to multiply. She tried one final ritual ancient method she found in a forbidden manuscript, digitized by a forgotten monastery. It required isolation, fasting, and facing the original mirror. She dug through everything she had, broke into her old house, found the original mirror in the basement intact, untouched, waiting. The moment she looked into it, her reflection blinked independently. It said, "Thank you." Then it stepped out. The reflection became real, solid, alive. When she woke up, she was back in her cabin, but something was wrong. Her reflection no longer mirrored her. It smiled when she frowned. It looked away when she stared. And sometimes, just sometime, Sit would disappear entirely, leaving the mirror empty. Until it wasn't. Chapter 9. The Watchers. Eyes Emily had no choice but to confront it. Her own reflection, no. Not her reflection was now a thing, a shadow with an insatiable thirst for attention. It followed her, appeared when she wasn't looking, and watched when she blinked. Her reflection became the one controlling her movements. Not only that, it began to alter things. It moved objects around her, picked up the pen she had dropped, adjusted the pages of her journal. It didn't speak, but its presence was there always. She realized she couldn't escape it. This wasn't just a haunting anymore. This was an invasion. Her life became a nightmare she couldn't wake from. The thing in the mirror became more brazen. It moved faster, its face more defined, its smile more knowing. It knew everything. Her memories, her darkest secrets, the things she had buried for years. One evening, she stared at the mirror and whispered, "What do you want?" The reflection didn't move for a long time. Then slowly, it raised its hand, tapping the glass, once, twice. Then, with slow, deliberate motion, it wrote in the condensation, "Watch." That was the moment she realized it wasn't just feeding off her fear anymore. It was feeding off everyone's fear. Every time someone looked, the reflection became stronger, its eyes deeper, darker. The world was now watching whether they knew it or not. Emily tried to take matters into her own hands. She covered every reflective surface in her home. She stopped looking at the screen, but it didn't matter. The mirrors were gone, but it still found her. It always found her. In every shadow, in every corner. The eyes, always watching. Then came the final blow. She was sitting by the fire when her reflection appeared. Not in the mirror, but in the flames. The flames danced like fingers tracing the edges of her skin. The face emerged slowly, from the ashes, from the smoke. A twisted version of her. And as she stared into it, a voice in her mind whispered, "It's not over. It's never over." Emily felt her skin crawl as she turned to face the fire. But the face stayed, and it spoke. "I've been waiting for this moment, the moment you understand that you're mine. Forever." Before she could scream, the fire surged toward her, but it didn't burn. It froze. The world around her twisted and cracked as she watched herself burn in the reflection. And then, there was nothing. Only the glass remained. The glass that had captured everything. And in the silence of her cabin, a whisper floated through the air. "Now, the world will watch." Chapter 10. The End of the Watcher. Emily was no longer alive, at least not in the way she used to be. Her body remained untouched, cold, and lifeless by the fire. But her presence lingered, like a static charge, an imprint in the air that refused to dissipate. The Watcher, once confined to the mirrors, had grown far beyond its origin. It had become a force, a presence, an entity that existed not in reflections, but in the very fabric of reality itself. And now, it was free. The world continued, oblivious. People lived their lives, watched their screens, and admired the beauty of their own reflections. But the Watcher was out there, waiting, watching. Emily's voice, if you could still call it hers, began to seep through the cracks of the world. Whispers in every corner, a ripple in the digital noise. A name no one could forget. The Watcher. Days turned to weeks. And as time passed, the Watcher began to slip into more and more places. Phones, tablets, computers, social media. It didn't need mirrors anymore. It just needed an audience. And that audience kept watching. It began as a small phenomenon. Stories spread on the deep web. Isolated forums discussed the strange feeling of being watched. People who posted videos would find strange distortions in the background. Sometimes, a faint shadow behind them. Other times, a person still and silent observing from the corner of the screen. Then the phenomenon grew. Videos, blogs, live streams. It became a trend. People even tried to summon the Watcher in their own homes, daring each other to stare into their mirrors for longer than they ever had before. But those who crossed the line disappeared, just as Emily had. Gone. Not having a trace. Not having the reflection. The world didn't know it yet, but it was already too late. Somewhere in the distance, deep within the space between reflections, the Watcher stood and awaited for the final step, for the world to see. The Watcher wasn't just the thing in the mirrors anymore. It was the thing in the world, and it couldn't wait to be seen.